There's a lot of content on there on how to look expensive, how to dress expensive, but the thing is, none of it really matters if you don't realize that what you're wearing is making you look cheap. And spoiler alert, it doesn't have anything to do with what you spent your money on. It's really just making sure you're not buying any of the things on this list. Starting off with this, I don't know what else to call this, but it's like a little knot that comes like pre-installed in your shirt. You know, sometimes people do a little knot to make their shirts more cropped, or even my daughter will ask for like a ponytail to like bring her shirt cropped up, which she's 7, by the way, so that's fine. Like she can experiment and wear whatever she wants. But if you are not 7, and you should not be pre-knotting your shirt with a ponytail, and you should definitely not be buying any of these pre-knotted things because number 1, they're very outdated, and 2, they make you look cheap. This next one is a little bit debatable. I'm not going to say I dislike it as a trend, because I know it's something that comes in and out of style, and that is frayed hems. We see frayed hems on our denim. We see frayed hems on tops, kind of like unfinished sweater. I'm thinking of like Free People in particular. I've had a lot of these Free People sweaters with unfinished hems, and Free People is definitely not cheap. So like I said, it doesn't have anything to do with your budget. As far as it's being cute, I'm not saying whether it is or it isn't, but it does kind of make you look cheap. Like, look, if you have unfinished hems on any of your tops, or they're fraying, or they're like falling apart, that's making your outfit look cheap. So if you want to look a little bit more put together and more expensive, definitely try and avoid frayed hems. Speaking of fabric, poor quality fabric is another dead giveaway. If you are not sure if something is poor quality fabric, try and stick to things that are 1, solid color, and 2, not made of polyester or acrylic or plastic, basically. Try and look for natural fabrics, 100% cotton, silk, cashmere. There are really inexpensive places to shop for these things. Quince comes to mind. I know they have a lot of cashmere, a lot of silk, like 100% organic cotton. You can find nice things at the Gap. Honestly, they have a lot of cotton. So does J. Crew as well. But as soon as you start getting into these like drop shipped kind of plasticky, thin, sheer fabric things, and I'm going to come back to that last point, then your fabric's going to look cheap, then your whole outfit is just going to look cheap. This next item is kind of like a whole category on its own. It encompasses several things, and that's chintzy details. Like, I don't even know if anybody says chintzy anymore, but I'm saying it. Chintzy details like embellishments, rickrack is one that I've mentioned before that looks very, very cheap, and it looks outdated. I don't like anything that looks like a craft project that I went to Joann's and got some craft glue and did it myself. If it looks like I can do it myself, then it definitely looks cheap. I don't love the pre-embellished like blinky tops. Anything like with these 3D appliques, they can look nice if they're done right, but they can also look like a kindergarten craft project. So just be mindful when you're shopping, and maybe if you don't want to look cheap, you don't get any of these chintzy details. This is another one that's debatable. I'm not saying that it's not cute. I'm not saying that it's not on trend or on fashion. I'm saying that if your tops and your fabric is faded, then it looks cheap. And there are some things that we buy that are intentionally faded. I can think of a couple things that I even have in my wardrobe right now that are a little bit intentionally kind of have that faded look to it. And it's a trend look. Does it look cheap? Yeah. It doesn't look expensive. It doesn't look nice and classy or anything. Like, I'm wearing it as part of an overall look or a trend, but I'm not wearing it because I'm trying to look fancy. So if you want to avoid looking cheap, then definitely stay away from any of these like pre-faded fabrics. I'm not saying you have to go bold and bright and wear like, something really saturated. You can wear neutrals too, that's fine. Just make sure that they don't look like they've already been through the wash 100 times. Speaking of heavily washed fabrics, sometimes we get these fabrics that are see-through. Now, see-through and sheer is very much in style right now, but that's more of like black mesh, like in a fancy dress situation. I'm talking about that white shirt that's just a little bit on the sheer side. It just looks cheap. I'm not saying again that it's not on trend or that you can't wear it in some occasions, but it does look cheap. If you want to look a little bit more expensive and put together, you're better off with a crisp white shirt or a not see-through white shirt than something that's a little bit on the sheer side. Same goes for your pants. White pants in particular, especially white jeans, which tend to be tight. If they are sheer or transparent or any way a little bit see-through, it's going to look cheap. Same goes for your dresses, same goes for your skirts. We're not supposed to be really seeing it underneath unless it's intentional. My only exception is if, again, going back to like the black mesh paneling on a dress. I have a dress in particular that I'll probably put footage of here that comes to mind. That's a look, that's a whole different thing. But just generally speaking, if your stuff is on the sheer side, then yeah, it's looking a little bit cheap. This next one we need to talk a little bit about because It's the number one thing that you can do to dress better and to look better and to feel better in your clothes. But I guarantee that you're not doing it as much as you probably should be, because I feel like we just want things off the rack. And if you want to look a little bit expensive, or if you don't want to look like it was off the rack, then maybe you should consider getting things tailored. If it doesn't look or drape or fit you the way that you want it to, then it may look cheap. And listen, I've gotten things hemmed literally like an inch, and it makes a world of difference. And that's really the secret to looking a little bit more put together and like things were tailor made for you. If you're going to take away anything from this list, this is probably the most important one, in my opinion, because it doesn't matter if your fabric is thicker, it doesn't matter if your hems are not frayed, it doesn't matter if it's not sheer or see-through. If it's one of these really busy prints, then it looks cheap. There's just no saving yourself from a super busy, like ugly print. And I see it a ton. I don't know what it is, especially when they have multiple colors and these big floral things with like 4 or 5 colors on them. Paisley print in particular, like all of these, not only do they age you, but they look really, really cheap. I'm not hating on all prints. I personally tend to stick to solid colors. You can do some prints, but there's a different way to do them that it's just, I don't know how to explain it. The Amazon prints come to mind. Like a lot of those look very, very cheap. But when you compare it to something like a beautiful Farm Rio print, it's a night and day difference. Just something about it looks a lot more elevated and sophisticated. So if you love prints, I'm not saying don't wear them. But if you don't know how to shop for them, or you're just not sure, don't do prints. They can just look very inexpensive. And it's the one thing on my list that's easy to take away. And if you want to fight me in the comments, that's fine. If you love your prints, by all means, still wear them. But there are some that are more refined, a little bit more elegant. Like I said, the Farm Rio prints are very, very nice. Love Shack Fancy does a lot of nice prints. Love Shack Fancy is very expensive, but still they do very, very nice prints. But some of these other retailers have these really big, loud, multicolored prints that just look like a walking wallpaper. Timeless alternatives, floral prints, try to keep them to no more than 3 colors max. Stripes is still timeless. Polka dots may or may not be in at the moment, but that's also a very timeless print. Lots of different things that you can try. Ooh, I almost forgot this one on this list in general because I thought I had 10, but I think I have more. And that is visible pockets. I hate visible pockets. It looks really, really cheap. This one is particularly a problem with white, especially if you have like a medium to darker skin tone. I know I have trouble shopping with white sometimes because if it's see-through, like, and you could see the pockets, no, I hate to see that little outline. It just looks really cheap. It doesn't look good. Again, going back to that sheer fabric thing, but also to just be mindful because this can happen even if it's not a super see-through fabric, it can still happen. So just look out for any pockets that might be poking through that we don't want showing. Another outfit that always looks cheap is anything with words on it. Yep, I'm gonna go for not just graphic tees in general, but just things like your shirt's talking. This, it's not timeless, it's not elegant. Not saying you can't wear it if you love that, but I personally don't like to be a walking billboard. I don't like signs in my house, my walls like speaking to me. I find it distracting. It's just, I mean, it does look cheap. You can buy those literally anywhere. So people spend a lot of money on these. If you are a fan of a specific band or whatever and you want to support them, I think that's awesome. I'm not saying never buy a graphic tee or never buy a concert tee, but to my point, does it look cheap? Yes, it does look cheap. And, you know, again, nothing wrong with wearing it if that's what you like, but it isn't more of a refined, elegant look. I'm gonna lump the next one into 2, and that is your clothes are too wrinkled or stained. And I'm talking about how we're all getting poly mailers these days and we're taking them straight out of the bag and not washing them beforehand. Let me know in the comments below, do you wash your clothes before wearing them? I want to know, because I did a poll on Instagram and the majority of people don't wash their clothes before wearing them. I'm not saying if I do or I don't. I was just very surprised by the results. So I want to know, do you wash your clothes before wearing them? And if you don't, and you're just pulling them on the bag and throwing them on, like, you need to steam them. It sucks. I hate doing it. Sometimes I'll just use Wrinkle Refresh. Sometimes I will throw it in the dryer. Like, I will do anything that I possibly can to avoid ironing or steaming something, I really will. Sometimes if it's really high maintenance, I just won't wear it again. That's how much I hate ironing. But if you're wearing stuff out that's really, really stained or it's wrinkled in some way, like it looks haphazard, you don't look put together, it doesn't matter how much you paid for the outfit. If it's wrinkled, it just looks kind of frumpy. So just a quick wrinkle release or stick it in the dryer or just use a steamer and you're gonna look so much more put together. Too many holes in your shirt, too many holes in your jeans, overly distressed jeans. I don't think this is as much of an issue right now because it's not really in style right now. We're seeing a lot of straight leg, like very conservative, just, less holes. But for a while there, like there were really very distressed jeans were of the moment. I had a pair that was busted at the knee, pair of skinny jeans. I'll find a picture here. And, I liked them. They were super cute. They were very on trend. Did they look cheap? Yes. I can say that. Did I wear them anyway? Yes. So see, I'm allowed to contradict myself here. But again, this is particularly advice is if you're wanting to not look cheap, if you want to look a little bit more elevated and a little bit more expensive. And if that had been my intent and I wasn't just sitting around taking a picture of my outfit at home, then I would not have worn that. But since it didn't matter and that was the look I was going for, then it was fine. Sometimes we have a combination where it's like off the shoulder and it's got the frayed hems and it's got the knotted thing. Like all of that stuff, aside from being grossly out of style, it looks really cheap. Now, if you are concerned about being outdated and not really sure about what's in or what's out, then watch this video next that's going to show you all of the outdated trends to avoid this season.